Health Monday, and we're joined by the dynamic duo, the D&D guys, Jacob, Jared from Marble City Pharmacy. They're excited about being here. It's a Monday morning, and it starts another week at Marble City Pharmacy. And this morning, we're talking about tick-borne illnesses. Can I tell you something? I dislike ticks, badly. I don't like them.
I just want to start by saying that most people these days associate D&D with Dungeons and Dragons, so we got to be careful with our abbreviations here.
You can look at you guys, tell you're not there.
Yeah, tick-borne illnesses. It seems like a crazy thing to be talking about. I guess, why are we talking about it now? First of all, tick-borne illnesses in Alabama are on the rise, believe it or not. In the last few years, there have been a major uptick in them. In fact, even in our own practice, we've seen more and more people with these type of infections that come from ticks. Also, this time of year is a time of year when tick-borne illnesses would be most prevalent, and that has to do really with more people are outside. We'll get to how you catch ticks or get tick bites later on. But more people are outside, and then more of the type of ticks we have in Alabama are active at this time of year. So this is the right time to talk about it, I believe.
Well, Jacob, I don't know if ticks can be in your yard or in tall grass. Where and how do people come in contact with ticks?
Yes, and yes.
All right.
You come into contact with ticks in pretty much anywhere you're going to be outdoors. Much more likely in certain places, anybody who's in the woods a lot. Hey, you're around ticks whether you know it or not, and lots of them. If your yard, it's all manicured and perfect, and you're that guy that cuts it every 3 days, if your yard borders a wooded lot, hey, you got ticks in your yard.
That's me.
Yeah, so when I keep my yard perfect, I wouldn't have ticks in my yard. Well, yeah, if it's anywhere near the woods, you do. If you let it grow up and get taller, they're much more likely to be in there. You got a lot of bushes, they're in there. You got, we all got that pile we throw the old logs and stuff in, the old sticks in the yard off to the corner. Your stick pile, your rock pile. Any rotted log or fallen log, you got a tree that's been down or something, you got a stump, ticks in that. They live in all these places, and anytime you walk anywhere near one of these places, you're susceptible to coming into contact with ticks because they're everywhere outdoors.
You see more this year than previous years, maybe?
Well, they are increasing, no doubt. And let me just add this. You also need to be aware of your pets, right? So, I don't know if it's more common than you getting them on yourself. I doubt there are statistics about that. But your pets are also in these areas. So, to me, just another great reason not to have pets.
Yeah, another good. Well, and also we got a lot of guys around here that have livestock. We're talking about pets, but just any of them. You got livestock you deal with.
No
ticks
doubt.
there. A lot of exposure.
Do ticks pick and choose who they want to grab hold of?
Ticks are looking for blood. That's what they live on.
They're the IRS.
I knew I
They survive on the blood of others. It's the IRS.
Not expecting that. But the blood of horses or cows or your dogs or cats or humans. No doubt.
What kind of problems can it cause?
Well, there's a couple that everybody knows about, or at least one that everybody talks about. The most common problem in the United States with ticks is Lyme disease. Everybody has heard the term Lyme disease. And the most common in Alabama, however, is a form of spotted fever. Specifically, the long term is Rocky Mountain spotted fever, even though last time I checked, we're not anywhere near the Rocky Mountains.
All right.
But yes, those are Lyme disease most common in America and very common in Alabama. The most common in Alabama is Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And they're different diseases, but we'll talk about them as a group because there's a lot of similarities. One of the more scary similarities of the fact that they come from ticks is that neither of these shows up for a number of days or even weeks after you've been bitten by a tick. That there's a delayed reaction to these things. And so a lot of times, you've seen a tick, you've pulled it off of you, you don't think anything else of it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks later, you start showing some symptoms of problems, and you're thinking, hey, remember that day 6 weeks ago I pulled a tick off of me? So we miss the diagnosis sometimes. And so usually with these you get a rash is the first thing you see. With Lyme disease, you get this rash that looks exactly like the Target logo. It is a bullseye. And it's not necessarily where the tick bit you. It can be pretty much anywhere on your body. It looks exactly like a Target logo bullseye. The difference with Rocky Mountain spotted fever is you get a whole lot of little red spots, and a whole lot of them. most commonly around the wrists and the ankles. But you get these rashes, but that's not all. You get these other symptoms as well that are real non-specific to a tick bite. You get headaches, you get nausea or vomiting or diarrhea sometimes. You get body aches, chills. It feels like you have arthritis acting up really bad. Sometimes you get mental confusion, mental fog that acts more like a dementia or an Alzheimer's. That sometimes people think, well, that's what's wrong with this person. And the truth is, it's an infection from a tick bite, either Lyme disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever more often than not.
Can ticks become embedded in a person?
Oh, they can. And the longer that you let a tick attach, the deeper it gets embedded. The more blood that it sucks, I mean, it continues to have to suck blood from you, right? And it wants to do that day after day after day as long as you leave it there, right? And so the longer it's attached to you, the more possibility you have a disease. And these two that Jacob mentioned are not the only ones, and we're not going to name all these, but there are a host
Because
of
he
other.
can't.
Well, I can't pronounce most of them. Is the problem? There are a host of other tick-borne illnesses, most of which are bacterial. Not every single one of them. Most of which are bacterial that can happen. There's also, I'm not going to go through the list of the type of ticks. There are 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe up to 10 different type of ticks just in the state of Alabama that you might come in contact with. So yes, they can stay on you for a while if you let them, and that's why, we'll get to this in just a second, but that's why if you spend any time outdoors, you really need to end up being a person who regularly does a full body check to make sure there are no ticks there.
Is there a miracle cure? Is there some spray you can spray on you to prevent ticks from latching on to you?
Prevention is the key, and yes, bug spray is a big deal. Using, all the old bug sprays have DEET in them or whatever, but a bug spray on your skin that's exposed and your clothing that's exposed when you're going to be outside, especially in the woods. Believe it or not, lice spray has a chemical in it that is really good for preventing ticks. Spray down your clothes, your backpack, your stuff with lice spray helps prevent it. So those are preventing them from getting on you. Wearing longer clothes, I know it's hot. It's real hot, but if you're going to be out deep in the woods, wearing longer clothes with cuffs on them does make a huge difference. It really does. So those are prevention ways, but also preventing yourself from getting exposed to the pathogens and the illnesses ticks bring are, like you said, check yourself. If you've been outside, when you come in, do a check of yourself. They like to get in the scalp and hair. They like to get wherever your clothing meets and stops at a seam, like your waistband, your wristband, whatever on your clothes. That's where you're going to look. Your ankles, you're going to look down there. Feet. They like to crawl up. Unfortunately, they like to get in the groin area. That's one of the more common areas. So corners of the scalp and hair and ears, groin, where your clothes meet. Those are your most common places that you definitely need to check. You need to check your pets regularly because they'll leave your pet and latch onto you. You got a dog, goes outside to use the facilities, come back in. Hey, give them a good pat down, feel for ticks, because that's the most common. So I would much rather prevent a tick problem than hope we can properly figure it out later and get it treated later. Let's prevent it. Bug sprays, clothing, check yourself.
Speaking of treatments, what are some of the treatments?
Well, there are some treatments, and most of them are all on prescription, and they're antibiotics. The good news is that the most common illnesses caused by ticks can be treated by antibiotics because they are bacterial. The bad news is that the longer you let these things go on without being treated, the more likely they are to be serious. And we're not trying to scare everybody, but some of these bacterial infections can literally be fatal if you let it go on long enough. And that's why the importance of examining yourself, getting the ticks removed as quickly as you can find them is of utmost importance. Fun fact, ticks cannot jump or fly. So if you see something flying through your living room you're wondering if it's not a tick. However, even though they can't jump or fly, they're crazy quick. So you can walk past a brush, you can sit on a rotten stump for even just seconds, and these things can get to you very quickly.
Wow.
And with the treatment, and he was getting at this, is even once you get the treatment, and even once that tick infection is cleared, the longer you had it, the damage is done. You can't necessarily get the problems that it caused to go away just because you take the antibiotics and the infection goes away.
What's the problem it can cause?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, the mental confusion,
Wow.
slurred speech, again, almost like you have some form of neurological disease. That was caused from the tick infection. Well, you took the medicine finally, you cleared the tick infection once you figured out what it was, and the doctor diagnosed it and gave you the medicine. The tick infection's gone away, but the longer it's gone on, sometimes the sequela, the consequences of having that, if the damage is done, the damage is done.
Muscle and joint pain.
Muscle and joint pain, lifelong arthritis, just from that tick bite. So a lot of things that come with it that are really strange. And again, like you said, in our practice, in our store, we have multiple patients that have lifelong issues that once they were figured out and all the blood tests and everything back, it was
That's amazing.
from tick bites that they just didn't know what it was, and little minor symptoms here and there along the way didn't really relate it. It wasn't bad enough to deal much with, and then here we are a year or two later, and they've got some serious issues. They get it treated, but some stuff doesn't go away.
It sounds crazy,
Yeah, it
but,
really does.
but it's important.
And the reason we're talking about it is because these types of things we're talking about, learning more about the different tick diseases and what they eventually lead to and not getting them treated, is so much on the rise in Alabama. 10, 15 years ago, you didn't hear anything about this. Now, again, even in our small town, in just our small practice in our small town, we have multiple people with lifelong problems from tick bites. And maybe we always had them and just didn't know it. But we're very much more knowledgeable about it now and on the lookout for these things now and realizing just how much of this is going on.
A lot of people, I'm not one of them, but a lot of people have pets. And I've read stories where tick infestation has actually been the cause of death for pets.
Oh,
yeah.
no doubt. And we didn't really address that, but Jacob will remember this. I remember our dad pulling ticks off of our dogs when we were little multiple times. And what you can see some of the similar things in your pets that you can see in humans. If you see one of your pets who's lethargic, who seems to be confused, things are off with your pet. You need to be checking them because there's a great chance that they have a tick infestation.
Wow.
This is real fun, isn't it?
Illnesses.
This is fun, yeah.
Yeah, I
They came to cheer you up on a Monday.
Well, I remember ticks being on animals and you pulling them ticks off and they're just full of blood.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Thank you both for coming this morning.
Yes, sir.
We just wanted to brighten your day with
Oh,
tick talk.
yeah, get by to the
Tick-tock.
pharmacy and talk more about tick-borne illnesses. We got more Daybreak coming up just ahead. Don't go away.